Hey, Rupert here. The purpose of this video is to go through my post that caused so much controversy and upset so many people in my network. Now, I'm not going to go into the comments, the fallout, or anything else that happened since. I'm going to do another video just for that. This video, I'm going to break down the post line for line, giving meaning and context to the words, topics, and ideas within the post. It needs to be done because I can fully acknowledge that there was emotionally charged language in the post that didn't have much context given, and this created room for people to project their own meaning onto it. And now there's a lot of people who are unsure how to proceed with regards to me and grounded going forward. So this video is not for my staunch supporters. I thank you for your support. Nor is it for my detractors. Haters are gonna hate. Not much I can do about that. It is for those who were triggered by the post, but they're not projecting their shit, and the silent majority who busted out the popcorn to watch the shit show, but they're still a bit unsure where they sit in relation to all this. So if that's you, let's go. But before we dive in, it's important that I set the frame in how I see social media and how I use it. As I put in the work to master it, I've come to see it as an open source journal where we can all share what's going on inside of our head and our hearts, where we all get to learn from each other by curating what we see. We can integrate the bits that serve and forget the bits that don't. Now, the secret hack to win on social media is to only share content from your own lived experience, right? And then that way you can be sure that you're only speaking truth and not passing on secondhand information that's not been verified through your own lived experience. When I'm writing to me like a journal. So when I say you, it's actually me, my past self, that's going to read it in the future. I'm also writing to alternative me's who are on a similar but different journey, and they might be taking little bits of value that I share and remixing it into their lives, just as I do that to a whole bunch of other people online. I follow, take little bits of things that I like that will serve in my life and remix it. So that's it. Let's break it down. Let's get into it, the posts. All right. Let's talk about defense when it comes to shit hits the fan prepping. So this idea of shit hitting the fan, it can mean a lot of things to a lot of people, but basically it means that the future is uncertain, and we've always planning for an uncertain future, whether it's saving up for a rainy day or uncertain medical emergencies, whatever it is. There's also, natural disasters that happen, man-made disasters, economic collapse, supply chain disruptions, currency collapse. Some people like myself like to take it to the extreme. Now, I don't really see zombie apocalypses, but I do dabble in the idea of civilization collapse. We lose all of the modern technologies and comforts and, all these things. And so then what would life look like? What is the base layer of reality that we go back to? That still exists today and is still a fundamental part of our culture today, even though we have all these layers on top. So, the future's uncertain. It makes sense to prepare for that uncertainty. And so for myself, in this prepping permaculture mindset, I'm imagining all of those layers stripping away back to these base layers of like natural kind of ways of living, and then projecting that out onto the longest possible time horizon, right? So beyond my own lifetime, beyond even one or two, I'm imagining how things might play out if we have a serious, kind of like we've had ancient civilizations before and they all dropped away. And how did we come through? How did we survive? These are the questions. Now, coming back to this idea of defense, right? Within the prepping world, there's a whole bunch of people that are kind of just not thinking that long term, right? And they've got their bunkers full of baked beans and bullets. They might be the lone wolf defending themselves or their immediate family. And I just don't see that as a very smart or strategic long-term strategy. Okay, and so really we're flipping it. This is what we're flipping, this idea of defense. Your best bet is to build a network of trusted relationships, especially with your neighbors and surrounding community. This is your number one line of defense. Don't try and go it alone. You have zero chance. Okay, so really I'm promoting this idea of community, and that's essentially how I see life and reality that existed in tribal times, in traditional times, in ancient times. These are very, very permanent layers of culture and reality, and how we've existed for a long time, and they still exist today, even in our modern, globalized, technological, digital world. Okay, that trusted friends network needs a mix of people. Okay, and I start with strong men who love to work hard, who know who they are, who won't tolerate bullshit, who know the local terrain, who know how to handle weapons. The farmers and hunters with guns, and the gardeners with machetes and chainsaws. Now, anyone who lives on land knows that it's a lot of work to take care of, especially if you're aiming to produce primary production, your food, and take care of things as much as possible, in-house. And a lot of that's hard physical work. Now, can women do this work? Absolutely. I'm not saying that it can't be done by women as well, but the bulk of it is carried by men for the majority of the time. Even, there was women in there claiming about how they can drive tractors and chainsaws and do all these things, which is awesome. All for that. Men designed and built those tractors and chainsaws, right? So men are doing and have done for the bulk of history and humanity a lot of the physical work, building up the physical world. And so you need men who love to work hard, who have some of these characteristics. And that's just how I see having good, strong, resilient community without the modern comforts that we might have come to get used to in the world. Men have to be balanced by women, right? Loving women, and who are deeply connected to their divine feminine, who live to love, care, and nurture, especially kids, who bring beauty to everything they do. Now, the next chunk here is absolutely the most emotionally charged line in the whole piece. I'll fully acknowledge that. But before I get into that, I want to really articulate here. I'm trying to spell out what is the essential base layer, okay? Like, we can have all of these fluid gender roles on top, and I experience it in my life all the time. I'm doing it myself and have others around me, men and women, in these fluid gender roles. But it's not to confuse the non-essential with the essential, right? We're talking about base layer primacy of man and woman, creating child for the continuation of culture. So we need women with feminine qualities, we need men with masculine qualities as the base layer, and we can have all these other things on top. Okay, so this line, here we go. Who don't attempt to emasculate or undermine the man's authority in leadership. Now, the original piece said emancipate, but if you read it as emancipate, it doesn't really make sense, right? Who don't attempt to set free or undermine the man's authority in leadership, but gracefully guides it by whispering sweet nothings in his ear, and he thinks that this idea is his. Okay, first two lines. Who don't attempt to emasculate or undermine the man's authority and leadership. I'm not saying that the man has supreme authority and leadership over everything, but in the realms where a man or even a woman, right, masculine energy of leading, driving, directing a particular thing, when someone is doing that, it is not helpful to have the support role undermining that or attempting to sabotage the frame that is being set and held by the masculine energy. Now, in my life, I'm a man. I'm only speaking from my lived experience, right? This is me basically clearing trauma that I have had from toxic feminine energy that's taken me a very, very long time to spot, right? We can talk about toxic masculine energy. Absolutely, that exists. But for me, it's been much easier to spot in my life. It's very direct, it's confrontational, it's often threatening, and, sometimes goes to violence. But toxic feminine energy has been much harder for me to spot in my life. It's taken me a lot of work to accept responsibility for it being in my life and to fix the energy leaks within my space, to not have it in my space, in my field, in my energy field anymore. And it's not people, it's just behaviors, right? It's just particular types of destructive behavior, right? If toxic masculinity is destructive to life, then toxic feminine energy is also destructive to life. So really, it's like having women who are not undermining their men. That's it, right? But gracefully guides it by whispering sweet nothings in his ear, and he thinks the idea is his. Okay, and really, like, this is, it's like, you imagine like a coach or a teacher or someone who is guiding someone through a process. They don't need credit for the idea, right? Their job is to literally seed these ideas in a person so that they can take those ideas and run with them and grow into a better human being, right? And if we look at the sort of classic sacred dance between masculine and feminine energy and man and woman, there is, the analogy that men are the riverbank that sort of set the frame and direct the flow, and the feminine energy is the flow, but then that flow carves out and shapes the riverbanks over time. So it is a constant back and forth dance. That's all I'm speaking to in this point, and I acknowledge it's the most emotionally charged line, and it's literally just me clearing my own trauma around this particular dark side of destructive feminine energy. Okay, and the second line of gracefully guides it by whispering sweet nothings in his ear, it's cheesy poetry, right? And that's kind of been the funniest moments where I have ideas that I think are mine and I'm reminded that they're not. Okay. Resilient kids who have parents listed above, who have an insatiable curiosity, who won't stop questioning everything, and who will succeed whatever you have set up, right? These kids that we're bringing in have to be switched on. They have to be questioning things. They have to be curious. And we really want to create something. I really want to create something that the kids want to carry on and carry forth. Wise elders who have aged gracefully, who are not twisted and bitter, who have valued life experience, and who are the living link to your ancestors, right? And they've been through all this before. And it's really important to have those elders around. And I am very grateful for the elders that I do have around that do bring this wisdom, who have aged gracefully. And I've had to do a bit of work of letting go of those older people who were twisted and bitter, right? And who are they have the age, but not the wisdom, you might say. Okay, look to other places where shit has gone down. I've been there and seen it firsthand. Argentina, 2000 and 2001. I was an exchange student. I was 15, turned 16 while I was over there, and there was economic collapse, right? It's happened a lot in Argentina, but in particular, end of 2000, early 2001, there was massive riots all over the country, and I witnessed firsthand what happens and how it happens. The looters go for easy pickings. They can only do it short term, and they have no chance against what I've specified above, right? I remember being in this town where I lived, 40,000 people, and they're charging through the town, and they're only taking out the corporate shops. Like, they're going for they're not taking out the mum and dad shops. And, if you have a strong network of people that are looking out for each other, if this crazy looter energy comes, you have a much stronger, better chance of deflecting it, disseminating it, getting rid of it. And looting is only a short-term strategy, right? Like, if we're talking years or decades or generations, when without the modern comforts, it's not a long-term strategy. Now, this next part is also got charge in it, and I can see how it upset people. Furthermore, watch out for the morally virtuous moochers who will infiltrate this trust network and drain all of your energy and resources under the guise of equality and fairness. This is something that I've experienced directly in Grounded many times in different ways. And I know that it exists beyond my own experience because there is a word for it within the hippie circles. And for anyone that's been around rainbow gatherings or rainbow crew, there's a word for it called drainbows, right? On some regards, they're people that are very charming, very nice, bring some good energy in some ways, but then actually are very subversely draining energy in other ways. And it takes time to realize that because of the way that it's conducted. And sometimes you can speak to it and the person autocorrects and it's all good. Sometimes they can't. It's a really crazy dark energy to deal with, and the better you get at spotting them, the more subversive their tactics, right? This is I've just seen it more and more throughout the years. As I get better at spotting it, it comes back in other ways. It's just like training, right? As you get better at doing something or getting better at anything, you there's more things to learn, I guess. So that's it. Stay awake, stay vigilant, keep prepping for life. And the photo of me yesterday at Grounded, right? As much as there's a lot of people upset about this, this is, as best I can, a truthful, honest expression of where I'm at. And that is going to influence and set the frame for everything in my life, including Grounded. And I hope this gives some more understanding and context to the post and where it came from. And, I just want to remind myself and all of you guys, I'm all for fluid gender roles above these sort of foundational layers. I'm a very masculine man, and I can be very much in my masculine, but I also spend a lot of time in my feminine, right? I spent half the week caring for my 3-year-old son and hanging out with other kids on the property, and we're exploring nature, we're learning to read, I'm cooking up mad feeds with them, and we're just simply living, loving, and growing in life, right? So this idea that I'm a danger to the community, that I shouldn't be allowed to hold space, that I'm a misogynist, that I'm a fascist, that I'm the poster child of the evil patriarchy, is all friggin' nonsense. And it's just simply not true, okay? Thankfully, I've already established everything in that original piece, because that's a codification of what's already in existence for me, right? I have a trusted network of men and women around me who are cognizant of their cognitive bias, who are grounded in common sense, who can take responsibility for their ability to respond to controversial content, who can see this for what it really is, who can remember have a laugh at the grand cosmic joke that is life. Okay, so that's all from me. Let me know what you think in the comments. I hope you get to see, feel, and understand where I'm at, where these words have come from, and what I meant by it all. All right. Peace.